Oda finally did it. He answered our prayers, Garling fans, and he gave us a big effing W, if that's what you want to call it. Welcome back in, you guys. One Piece Chapter 1166 has released. My name is Sai, and we are here to talk about it. So getting right into it, we got a color spread here where we're missing, I'd say, like a good chunk of the Straw Hats. There's no Jinbei, no Brook, no Frankie, but we do have everybody else, including Yamato, Shinobu, and Tama, everybody's favorites from Wano, and all these characters are gathered together to eat some good old sweet potatoes. I've never really had sweet potatoes. I think I've had like one or two in my entire life, and I'm just not the biggest fan of it. I don't know. There's something about potatoes, in my opinion, that just weren't really meant to be sweet, but maybe that's just me. Either way, this is a nice festive color spread. I really enjoyed it. Looking into some of the clothing text, Yamato's jersey says 15 and Odin ni Soro, and that essentially translates to Odin wouldn't be Odin if it wasn't boiled, which is, Odin's catchphrase in Wano. Next up, we have Zoro, whose hat says cast off. Not too sure why it says cast off. Everybody else's text makes sense, and then it just says cast off for Zoro. It sounds like he's about to go fishing, or, he's finishing up knitting. So I don't know what Oda's aim is there. But for Nami, her sweater-jacket says any port in a storm, which is a very common phrase. I'm sure you've heard of that before. And I think Nami's actually worn something that says exactly that in the past as well. So Oda is repeating that phrase, which makes sense considering the fact that Nami is a navigator. She really does guide the ship to a port during storms. That is her job. And yeah, overall, I enjoyed it. Love the foxes, love the raccoons, and I just really like the vibes here. It's very Thanksgiving-esque. Getting into the chapter now, we're gonna get through the nitty-gritty. First up, we got the endgame of God Valley, and I personally was pretty shocked. If you've watched my previous videos, you know that I was expecting at least one full chapter of God Valley, maybe two if we're lucky. But no, Oda does cut it quickly. We see the wrap-up of the fight here. We got Roger, Garp, and Rox all lying on the ground, and it's actually raining. I thought that was really odd. At first, I was like, oh, that's cool as hell, Rain in One Piece. We don't get that super often. But here we have it. It is indeed raining, and it does fit the vibes. I wonder if there's going to be like a grander meaning behind the rain, and I'll get to that later. But yes, we do have all the goats here. They're all pretty much unconscious. They cannot move, and we get Rox's inner monologue. He says, wow, did they really break the curse? Domi Reversi has been undone. And it's funny that we finally got the answer as to how to break Domi Reversi during God Valley. And essentially the answer is to beat them black and blue. Oh, somebody's a demon? Well, let's just beat them with Conqueror's Hockey, guys. I'm sure there's going to be another way around it, because considering the fact that a lot of the giants on Elbaph right now are Domi Reversi'd, I can't imagine the Straw Hats going around and beating every single one. I know that sounds absurd. Of course, the Straw Hats are strong enough to do it, but that seems like a hassle. So, in my opinion, I feel like there might be another way to break the curse that we'll discover later on. Maybe it has to do with Sun God Nika. Maybe there's something in Elbaph that'll help out a little bit. But yeah, here we go. Rox is back to normal. And speaking of Rox, this is a little bit of a tangent, but I don't know if you guys saw, but we finally got Rox's official color scheme this week. I don't think I'll be able to show the images outright, but essentially, the light part of his hair is white. And then the part that looks black, that is actually blue. Kind of like a dark blue color. And then as far as his tattoo, that lightning bolt he has running through his eye, that is purple. In my honest opinion, I think it's pretty decent. And that's mainly because I've seen all the other color schemes you could have gotten. I've seen like a crazy green, rainbow colors, purple. It's like, okay, this is the least of all evils. So I think white and blue is pretty awesome. Now I'm just kind of wondering why Blackbeard has black hair. Perhaps Blackbeard got his hair color from his mother's side, which sounds absurd at first, but it's One Piece, anything can be possible. For all we know, Eretz does have black hair. I mean, hell, go back to the God Knights. There's one God Knight in particular that has always been colored in black. And then we get the anime official coloring, and boom, she's actually blonde. And everybody's like, wait, what? Like, didn't Oda, really shade her in? Like, why is she blonde? So really, anything is up in the air. I think there could be like a grander meaning behind Blackbeard's hair, or even Rox's hair. I've seen people bringing back up the Rox is Buggy's dad theory again because of the blue. And personally, I'm pretty on the fence on that one. I don't hate it. I don't love it. I'm kind of like, okay, like they could be related, but where would we go from there? You know, how did that actually happen? Did Rox just go to an island, see a clown girl, and pump and dump? Like, what's up with that? But yeah, just forecasting the rest of the weekend right here. Expect the Buggy theories to go absolutely bonkers. And not just because of the blue hair, but we've had other parallels too. People are saying, oh, you know, when Rox was first introduced, it kind of looks like Buggy's smile. And then, of course, the wanted poster, they're both doing the hand grab thing. So I don't think, you know, the Buggy theories are absurd by any means. I'm just wondering if there's going to be like more meaning behind it later on, which Oda could definitely do. So now, cutting back to the chapter, Rox says, come on, stay alive. This island is ... And then he looks up and he realizes that the God Knights are coming. We see Garling, Sommers, and Maffy all walking up. And I'm not going to lie, you know, besides me being a God Knight fan, they're kind of aura farming. I think everybody in the community kind of agrees. They're like, wait, these guys kind of look badass here, despite them being very weak and underwhelming here at God Valley. We can all acknowledge that, right? We can say they're not strong, but that they look cool as hell in this panel. So we continue the Rox monologue, and he says, damn it, it's too late. Roger, Garp, you guys can't die here. You gotta run. And by the way, there's one thing I wanted to say, but thanks for stopping me. And as he says that, we see Garling raise his sword and plunge it on down. And it's pretty safe to assume that because of that, Rox XBEC has passed away. So, Garling, is this a W, Garling fans? Logically, no. You know, Garling pretty much contributed nothing to this fight. I guess you could say he's equivalent to maybe the Scabbards during Wano, like, oh, you know, the Scabbards fought Kaido beforehand because Garling and the Davy clan fought Rox. But that's kind of negligible. I'm sorry, Scabbard fans. That's just how it is. But, you know, logic aside, the agenda within me is screaming W's. Garling put an end to the nastiest pirate on the 7 seas. Nobody could have done it except for good old Garling here. Roger and Garp, their final attacks couldn't do it. But Garling, walking in with what seems to be 100% HP, finished him off. Which, by the way, agenda aside, the fact that Garling, Maffy, and Sommers don't have a single wound on them, absurd. We know that they can regenerate, but at what point does it stop? You know, like, we saw what Rox did to Garling. Chopped him in the head, knocked him unconscious where he was bleeding on the ground, and he's still up. Like, this is maybe 30 minutes, an hour later, and it's like, damn, dude, these Holy Knights, yeah, they're not the toughest guys around, but you can't really put them down in the dirt. I wonder what the solution is going to be to that. Is it going to be kind of like what Roger and Garp did to Rox, where you just keep on beating them down until you get to this point? I don't know. I'm not exactly too sure. And also, I feel like the need to kind of justify why I like Garling, because some people come in here and they're like, wait, Sai, why do you like Garling? What's up with this? He's a bad guy, y'all. I mean, let's be real. What would any anime series be without a very hateable or likable villain? That is what Garling is to me. And of course, I like goofy characters, and his haircut's really stupid. And yeah, you know, it's the same as liking, in my opinion, Doflamingo or Kaido or Aizen or Madara. Like, it's just a villain in general. And I'm like, yeah, maybe he's not the toughest right now, but he's still kind of cool, right? I do think he is a pretty fun guy to follow. So now, fanboying aside, how do I feel about the God Knights coming off of God Valley? Pretty underwhelmed. You know, these guys did not perform all that grand. And not just that, but we didn't even see a vast majority of these God Knights, which I found really surprising. I think that was like the main thing that really, like, you know, made me rub my chin. It's like, okay, we got Garling, we got Sommers, we got a little bit of Maffy, but everybody else, they're kind of just on the side. Like the Yeti God Knight, the Man Meyer girl whose face is still being hidden, the skeleton guy. Like, Oda didn't show us what they could do. I mean, hell, we don't even know what they were doing. At some point, I was like, oh, maybe they're fighting the remnants of the Rocks pirates. Oh, maybe they're fighting the Roger pirates or Bogard. Maybe even Barbell. But no, we didn't see what they're doing at all. Like, those guys are literally MIA. Why is that? Perhaps they could be causing the island to collapse. That's my cope. Maybe they're causing the rain to come in. Or, maybe it's more of a plot thing and Oda just doesn't want to show them yet because he's saving the reveals for later, which I do think we could still get in this flashback. I do not think it is over for the God Knights to get some sort of lore, because we know that Harald goes up to the Holy Land on numerous occasions, so maybe that is where Oda wants to reveal the rest of them. Like, oh, now that Harald's up there, say hello to the Yeti guy, say hello to the skeleton dude. Hey, here's Sandman Meyer's face. I think that right there is why Oda didn't show any of them off here at God Valley. And of course, I think he was trying to rush through it a little bit, so that is all fine by me. Cutting over now, we see Rayleigh and Gabon. They have successfully rescued Roger and Garp, and they're both kind of questioning, like, hey, what happened? What gives? Like, what about Rocks? Like, is he okay? Is he dead? And Rayleigh has to cut to the chase, and he says that he was killed. They apparently witnessed it go down. And it's kind of odd. I wonder, did the God Knights let Rayleigh and Scopper just go? Or perhaps were Rayleigh and Scopper just really sneaky and the God Knights didn't see them? I kind of question that right now. But of course, either way, we gotta remember that the Davy clan elimination was the God Knights' main plan from the beginning. So maybe they saw Scopper and Rayleigh running off and they're like, yeah, we're not gonna fight them. You know what? Hey, we took too many L's today. Let's just kill the guy in front of us. I could totally see that being the case. I've seen some people saying, oh, like, what about the whole Scopper and Somers confrontation? Because in Elbaph, Somers is like, oh my god, it's Scopper Gabon. And then Scopper's like, long time no see. Was this it? Maybe. Or we could just say that later on in the future, because we know that we're still 38 years in the past, Scopper and Somers meet at a later date. I do not think that is absurd whatsoever. There's still a lot of story to tell. And while the God Knights, I acknowledge it, they're not the strongest guys out there, I don't think we're done with them yet. I think Oda's still going to bring them back into the story as major players. So, we see, again, like I said earlier, the island is mysteriously collapsing. Why? Like, no Lelucia ancient weapon was fired off, so why is it dropping into the sea? What the hell is going on? Is it because so many powerful clashes were happening? That sounds like a One Piece explanation if I've ever heard one. Oh yeah, everybody's clashing on this island, so the bedrock got destroyed, and now the island is crumbling. That could be it. Or there's something else at play here. Maybe this has to do with the rain, which I still think is very odd. It just started raining literally out of nowhere. The thunder started crackling. Yeah, I think there is definitely something odd afoot. And what really, flips the switch in my brain is that we also get fog setting in as well. Brother, where the hell did the fog come from? Yes, fog is a natural occurrence. Yes, fog can realistically happen in this scenario, but everything about this seems so odd. Rain, lightning, fog, island crumbles. What's going on? And maybe this is a stretch. I mean, hell, it is kind of a stretch, but I do go back to the Skypiea gods. We heard about 4 gods. We got the sun god, which ended up being Luffy. We had the forest god and the earth god. Pretty much all those gods were mentioned in the Harley text. But there was one more god, the rain god. Maybe this is the work of the rain god, because I mean, rain, fog, thunder, lightning, island sinking. This could be rain god powers we're witnessing right here, and we just don't know it yet. Maybe Emu is the rain god. I mean, I think that's a pretty popular theory, right? Oh, Emu's the rain god because the water levels are rising. Maybe Emu is the one causing this to happen. I think that right there could be a semi-valid theory. As far as what I've seen online, I saw somebody saying that wherever Roger goes, storms kind of just follow, and they most notably referenced the Ed War against Shiki, and during the Ed War, yeah, a giant storm was conjured, and that's kind of why Shiki lost. Granted, I think Shiki would have lost anyways, but a storm was there. So yeah, perhaps it was the Roger pirates who actually did this. It could be the egg that did it. Maybe inside the egg is the rain god, which is even more of a stretch, but I think it is a cool theory to play with. So we get the final cliff notes of God Valley. The narrator says this event would leave no mark on the pages of history. The crumbling island was swallowed by the waves and consumed by fog. Which, one more thing, sorry. I'm like really stuck on the fog, rain, lightning thing. But this kind of also reminds me of the Florian Triangle. And, you know, there's a lot of fog over there in the Florian Triangle, and it's shrouding these giant monsters. Maybe this is where the monsters originate from. Maybe after an island crumbles, it shoots back into the sky and something spawns out of it. I think that'd be kind of interesting. You know, I'm not going to undersell the rain and the fog and the lightning. Something is up here, guys. I just know it. The narrator goes on, and they say, like curtains closing on a grand stage, that was the essence of the God Valley incident. The silence in the incident's wake lasted only a moment before a massive bolt of lightning split the heavens. Oh, maybe that was Garling. You know, Garling, boom, killed rocks, and then the island crumbled, the lightning crackled. Yeah, this was all Garling. Massive W for the Figarland family. And with that, the curtain rose for new tales to unfold. And that is it. That is the end of God Valley. And the narrator wasn't capping, because we literally do get so many stories spun off of here. We got Roger going on his route to become Pirate King. Garp goes on and trains future Marines and chases Roger. Whitebeard starts his crew. Big Mom starts her crew. Kaido starts his crew. Dragon starts the Freedom Fighters and then Revolutionaries. We see Baby Shanks, who goes on to become a Yonko. Sorry, I can't tell if that's Shanks in that panel or Shamrock, but I see jewelry around him, so I think it's Shanks. And then we see Kuma, of course. And last but not least, we got Blackbeard and Eris. And they're hitting the same pose from earlier in the flashback where Eris is just like holding teeth like that. Yeah. I hope we get more updates on some of these characters as we continue the flashback. I really hope that Oda doesn't cut us off right here. You know, of course, we can still follow Harald like 90% of the time, but I would love it if he weaved in some, oh, you know, here's Eris and Teach lore. Ooh, here's Roger. Oh, here's Garp. Because they don't just stop existing, right? Like, they're still around while Harald is around. So I would love it if we get continuations. That adds more lore to a lot of these characters. Like Dragon, especially. You know, we got a lot of Dragon here. I would love to see more. I want to see how he becomes a freedom fighter. You know, how does he start the revolutionaries? I think that'd be pretty freaking awesome. So, we cut now over to the Roger pirate ship, and the crew, they're waiting for Roger. Very polite-like, might I say. They're all waiting for Roger before they open up the treasure chest. They're like, come on, Roger, we're waiting for you, man. Roger says, sorry to worry you guys. And they're like, we're thrilled. Come on, check this all out. And then Roger says, wait, don't you care about me at all? We see that Shaki and Gloriosa are still on the ship. Okay, actually, stop. We don't see Gloriosa, we just see Shaki. But we know that Gloriosa is here, because there's no way we kicked her ass off, right? Yeah, no, she's still here. Garp, of course, I think they just left with the Marines, and that's why he's not here. But yeah, they're looking at all the hall, and that is when they hear a baby crying. Roger is like, wait, what? And then we get a goo goo gaga, and they're like, wait, it's coming from that chest. They open it up, and of course, we got baby Shanks coming onto the ship. Yeah, this is a 1-to-1 shot from Volume 4 Billion. Oda drew us a rough draft of this a long time ago, but here we have it. He finally fleshed it all out. So now, what's going to happen to Shanks? We gotta remember, these guys are pirates. You know, through and through, these guys raid places, they fight people, they go adventuring. I really do not think they have the time to take care of a baby properly. Am I crazy when I say that? Like, I just do not see Roger, you know, feeding Shanks with a bottle. You know, I can't see Shaki, like, popping out her titties and breastfeeding the boy. Like, that's not gonna happen, right? Then again, it's One Piece, you know? In One Piece, crazier things have happened. Maybe Roger does feel a paternal bond to the kid. But yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if we tried to drop him off somewhere. Like maybe Roger's hometown, which is Logtown. Maybe we drop him off with Gloriosa and or Shaki and they take care of him. Hell, maybe this is absurd, but maybe they even try to return him to the Holy Land. Which you might be saying, Sai, that's awful. Why would they do that? But hear me out. How does the Roger crew know that this baby is named Shanks? He doesn't have a name tag. The mother named him. So it's like, wait, how do they give him the name Shanks? Surely it's not like a coincidence, right? Maybe they do try to return the baby, and that's when Garling's like, hey, Shanks, is that you? And then Roger's like, oh, so his name is Shanks. Gotcha. Maybe that's it. And maybe Garling doesn't want him back, or maybe Roger says, ooh, if you're the dad, I'm not giving him to you. But yeah, as silly as that sounds, I do feel like this is a plot point that will or should be answered in the future, which, you know, going back to what I said earlier, even though we are now following King Harald by the end of this chapter, I wouldn't be shocked if we do get more Roger or Shanks lore as we go on. So, next things next, we get Garp's POV. And we see what big news Morgans has been spreading around the world. The headline reads that the Rocks pirates have been wiped out. And the highlight of the story was Vice Admiral Garp, who is now being hailed as the hero of the Marines. People are calling him the strongest. And I don't blame them. You know, if you hear that one Marine has taken down the Rocks crew, yeah, you know, this guy is absurd. That is insane power scaling. I like to imagine the people in the War and Peace world also power scale to some extent. You know, they look at bounty posters and like, who's stronger between these two guys? You know, which Marine can fight him? And Garp just took the top spot, man. So, of course, Garp is not happy about this because that is not the truth. They left out the hunting tournament. They left out Roger. They left out what happened to Rocks in the first place. They don't even mention Emu, I bet. So, yeah, Garp is upset. He says, I can't wait to get my hands on that Morgans fella. Which, by the way, keep in mind, Morgans, by this point in the story, I think is like 14 years old. He's still really young, dude. And he's over here reporting this to the whole ass world. Sengoku says, relax, Garp. He only wrote that because the government paid him off. So, yep, there we have it. The world government wanted a hero from the Marines to rise out of God Valley. And that just so happened to be Garp. And that could explain why Garp isn't being reprimanded. You know, for attacking Saturn, for attacking Emu, for helping Roger, for saving slaves. It's because they're just going to tack this title onto him. And it makes sense why they do this as well, right? I mean, hell, look at the citizens before the Garp panel. These guys are celebrating. They're happy that a Marine like Garp is on their side. I bet even normal Marines are happy that Garp is on their side. I mean, this is a big morale boost. So Sengoku's like, hey, this is what the top brass are doing. You know, the Marines are a large organization. It's impossible to account for everybody's actions. If it were me, I'd simply turn a blind eye to this. Garp doesn't like that, so of course, they start fighting. It kind of reminds me of like Zoro and Sanji. They're just throwing fists in the background. Garp ends up going off saying, you're just another promotion-chasing fool. Sengoku's response is to shut up. What good can you do barking from the bottom of the cliff? So it kind of implies that Sengoku wants to rise the ranks so that he can change things when he's the fleet admiral. Has he changed anything while he was fleet admiral, though? If he has, we haven't seen it. You know, maybe that'll be tackled later on, which again is why I would love to follow Roger, Garp, Sengoku, and everybody else during the King Harald segments. But yes, Garp says, if you ever stray and get corrupted, I will kill you myself, Sengoku. Sengoku's smiling and he says, how reassuring. I guess that is what friends are for. They start walking away from each other and Sengoku says, so you're not quitting then, are you, Garp? And Garp says, idiot. There are still things at the bottom of that cliff that need guarding too, that need a guard dog. And I love that. You know, I think this is a great encapsulation of Sengoku and Garp's relationship. They're friends and they're both trying to achieve the same goals through different means. But like I said, you know, Sengoku-wise, we haven't really seen much from him. Hopefully Oda focuses on him in the future, which, you know, going back to present day, we know that Sengoku and Sudo are going somewhere. Last we saw, they're on a ship moving. I know, the bare minimum, right? But right before we saw that, Sengoku and Suru, they were talking about cross-guild. Like, oh, you know, cross-guild is killing morale. They're over here enticing civilians to kill Marines. We gotta do something about that. So, are they going to cross-guild? We don't know. Because right after that conversation, we get hit with the whole thing about how Garp is at Hachinosu. So where will they end up going? Are they going to stop cross-guild? Are they going to save Garp? Or is there a third option? We don't know yet. And funny enough, I ended up holding a poll in regards to this. And let me look at the poll results real quick. You know, it's been a while. I'm kind of slacking on the poll videos. I apologize for that. But let me tell you, man, when those break weeks roll by, I eat it up. So where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Here we go. Current day, Sengoku and Suru, where are they heading? 7,000 votes on that poll. And according to the results, 57% of people believe that they are on their way to Hachinosu to rescue Garp. And personally, I would love that. I would love more Sengoku and Garp interactions. Hell, even a Suru interaction, right? I'm talking about Sengoku, but we gotta remember, Suru is there too, right? Suru, we need more of her, man. We need more of her. Only 12% voted to stop cross-guild, and then 32% just voted other. And we'll get to that poll later. We'll break it down and, you know, talk about the comments at a later date. But for now, just wanted to show that right there. Getting back to the chapter now, we cut over to Elbaph, and we get a little flashback between Loki and Roxy. Rock says, how many times do I have to tell you, Pipsqueak? Do you think I want a brat on my crew? Man, the guy I want ain't giving me the time of day, but his snot-nosed brat won't leave me alone. Yeah, the irony of that, huh? Loki then proclaims that he thinks that Rox is actually Nika. Rox says Nika. Loki then describes Nika as the warrior of liberation who will destroy the world while laughing. Rox says, destroy it? I'm trying to be king of the world. Besides, if anybody's got that sort of power, it's King Harald. And it's like, huh, laughing, destroying the world, he thinks that's King Harald? Is it because of brute strength? Or is that because of the Elbaph devil fruit? I think that right there might be another hint that the devil fruit that's being passed down in Elbaph is, of course, Luffy's sun god Nika fruit, which we've talked about many times before, about how that could go from Elbaph all the way to Luffy, and that could just be because the day King Harald died, somebody took it, they were traveling on the seas, Shanks beat them, and then, of course, Luffy ate the fruit. The timeline matches there. Of course, nothing is confirmed yet, though. I do think this is potentially another nod towards that theory, though. So, Rock says, Loki, listen up. I don't know why he brings this up, by the way. It's so random. Somewhere out there, the Gallyraw are slumbering. They're an outrageous band of giant ravagers. And the only one who can put them back into play is your pops. Which Rox has said before, but to the Rox crew. But now he's telling this to Loki, which I think is massive. You know, Loki beforehand said he wanted to be king of the world, right? He wanted to destroy everything. So it's like, yeah, like he got that from Rox. But now, with this latest chapter, that might not be Loki's only goal. Maybe Rox is entrusting him with this mission in a way, and Loki feels the need to find the Gallyraw giants because, hell, Rox is dead, and his dad is dead. Who else out there in the world could actually find the Gallyraw giants? Of course, except for, like, Luffy and Blackbeard, but, you know, Loki might actually pick up this goal. I mean, hell, Loki has already proclaimed himself as the sun god, so maybe he is taking up this mission. Maybe he does want to find Gallyraw somewhere down the line. And this could be a good way, you know, sorry to all the people who want Loki for Nakama, but this could be a good way for Oda to write Loki off of the crew. Because right now, a lot of people want him. I mean, hell, even Luffy extended the offer to Loki. So this could be where Oda is trying to separate him from us. Or maybe we just all align and, you know, he tells us about Gallyraw and we all go together. Anything's kind of possible, but Loki learning about Gallyraw, I do think is going to be massive. I wouldn't be shocked if this is Loki's goal by the end of Elbaph. And this could give him a whole ass crew too, right? Maybe he's the one who frees them and they all follow Loki and boom, Loki's now a captain of his own pirate group. Or maybe they all work under Harald and they work hand in hand. I don't know. Hello, you guys, it's me, the YouTuber known as Sai. I'm coming in here as I'm editing the video because I forgot to mention a lot earlier on that God Valley might still be around, mainly because of Shanks. And because we don't know what is at the bottom of the hole. There is a good chance that God Valley, the ruins of it, are still existent in the hole that was left when it collapsed. And I go back to when Shanks was talking to Whitebeard, and he brought him sake from his hometown. Well, Shanks was born at God Valley, which was in the West Blue, which is where Shanks said he got the sake from in the first place. So there is a chance that you could go down that hole and find God Valley still there. Are people living there current day? Maybe not. Maybe Shanks made the sake himself. But yeah, I am curious to see if God Valley is still existent. And this goes back to like Lelucia and even Innis Lobby. What's at the bottom of these holes? Why are these holes not being filled up once they got blown asunder? I think that is a pretty valid question. And I've also seen people saying that, oh, maybe Shanks didn't get it from God Valley, and instead Roger drops Shanks off in the West Blue, and he has another hometown. I like that theory too. Maybe that's where he meets Buggy. Either way, I am still questioning all of that with Shanks. So now pivoting on to Loki and why I'm putting this in the Loki segment in the first place. But if Loki does go and free Galley Raw, this could put him in line with one of two places. The first one would be Fishman Island. Maybe Galley Raw, after being thawed out after 900 years, they want to go see the Noah's Ark. And they're like, oh, hey, Loki, Captain, our hero. Let's go to Fishman Island. And then Loki would finally meet Shirahoshi, and that would be a big thing. Because for me, I do think that Loki has some sort of Void Century parallel or Void Century powers because of his eyes. I do not think his eyes are simply aesthetic. I think they do have some sort of power or some sort of sovereignship to it. And maybe he learns that when he goes down to the ocean floor. Kind of like how the Sea Kings, they saw Shirahoshi and they're like, oh, the mermaid princess has been born. And then they saw Luffy and they're like, oh, the sovereigns will meet soon. Maybe they'll see Loki and they're like, oh, he's finally here, the man who's gonna lead the Noah's Ark. Or if he doesn't go to Fishman Island, maybe Galley Raw wants to go to Wano, and that could be a big thing too, because that's where Pluton's at. Maybe Galley Raw wants to mess with it a little bit. We do not know what is up with these 900-year-old giants, my man. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That is why I wanted to cut in here. You might be wondering, Sai, why didn't you just put that God Valley portion earlier on in this video when you were talking about God Valley? Well, the way I edit my videos is really rough. If I were to do that, it would mess up the timing of all my images. So it's like, yeah, let me just throw it in here. Appreciate it, you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed my rambling. So, Rock says, imagine if Harald and I teamed up. Who could possibly stop us then? Loki is happy about it. He says, whoa, that's awesome. So why aren't you and my dad allies already? And Rock says, because of love. And I like that. You know, it's such a broad statement. Like, because of love. Does he mean Ida? Because Ida did, you know, kind of shoot Rocks down too. Saying, hey, if I was that guy, I'd tell him to pick his friends better. But another way we could see this is just Harald's love for Elbaph in general. Because everything Harald is doing is out of love for his country. He wants what's best for Elbaph. So yeah, I do think that does classify as love. So we end off and Rock says, I'm gonna come back again and again. I don't care if it takes 100 or 200 meetings. He wants Harald to ally with him. And that's so sad, man. You know, they talked about it earlier, right? Kaido was like, hey, why don't you just beat Harald and bring him onto the crew? And Rox is like, yo, I'm not gonna do that. You know, Harald is my friend. I just want to talk to him. And now they'll never talk again. If we thought that was heartbreaking, we now cut over to King Harald, and a lot of people are hating him right now, man. I've seen the hate brigade out for blood when it comes to King Harald because he did not go and help Rox, and because by the end of this chapter, he's bending the knee to the world government, the same people that killed Rox. But in my opinion, I kind of get Harald's stance here. So when we cut over to him, we're at just a random island and a giant thug was running amok here. King Harald came to stop him. But not only did Harald stop him, Harald beat the living daylights out of the man. Is this guy even still alive? I have no clue. Harald beats him black and blue. He says, huge trash heaps like you are responsible for the terrors in our race's history, and that is why we cannot be trusted. We only desire to peacefully engage with the world now, but they can't trust that because of people like you. I didn't want to jeopardize Elbaph's chance at joining the WG. That was my only reason for not helping him. I forsook my closest friend as he begged for my aid, and I left him to die. And there's no turning back now. I will now never forgive giants who do evil deeds. I think that's tough. I do agree with Harald here. I mean, he can't back down now, right? He can't turn back time and go and help Rox. No, he has put himself on this path to join the world government, and that is why he didn't help Rox. So if he were to back down now, that's kind of like spitting on the path he's been walking. That's like spitting on his decision to not help his friend. He has to triple down. He feels the need to. And of course, that is why he beats this giant black and blue. And I respect that. I mean, it's not like he's not remorseful too. I mean, he's crying, man. I do feel really bad for the guy. In his eyes, this is the only path he has left. He can't turn back. He can't help Rox. He can't save the Davy clan, which I kind of wish he did. Not like, go back to God Valley and save them, but I wish he knew about Eris and Teach. Maybe Eris and Teach come to Elbaph because, if they heard about Rox's plan to defeat Emu, maybe they heard about a good guy named Harald out there and they're out looking for refuge. I would just really like it if Harald and Eris had some sort of bonding moment. So we see that because King Harald rampaged on this island, Big News Morgans, or should I say the world government, reported that the Giant King is insane. He's a violent man. He lost it. Which is not the truth, but I could see how they could spin it that way, right? If you weren't at the island, if you didn't hear the things King Harald was saying, if you didn't see what this giant was doing beforehand, yeah. Giant beats another giant, black and blue. Yeah, this guy's crazy. I don't want to mess with them. And the world government definitely know what they're doing here. They're twisting King Harald's arm. They want him to become a slave. So, before we cut over to the last parts of the chapter, we do see a small snippet of Garp and Dragon. The first time we've ever seen them in the same panel together, and Garp breaks his son out of prison. We don't know if Garp actually got Dragon pardoned and this is all official, or if Garp simply, stole the key and now he's tossing it to his son. But either way, Garp is sticking his neck out for Dragon, and Dragon's like, Dad, I'm gonna quit the Marines. Garp says, yep. Dragon goes on and says, Dad, I hate you. And Garp just says, yeah. Oh yeah, here's the key, man. And the thing is that Garp, he kind of goes along with it because he can't blame his son. Leaving the Navy after God Valley? Yeah, I think most people would leave the Navy. Hell, I'd be more shocked if Dragon was the only one. And then as far as hating Garp for staying within the Marines and assisting in the event, yeah, Garp can't even defend himself, so he's just taking it all on the chin. It does remind me of the Ace moment where he goes back to Fuchsia Village and Dawn is just beating him black and blue and she's like, hey, you were there. Why didn't you save Ace? And Garp is like, not saying a single word because he knows that deep down they are right. He can't fight back against that, right? And, even if he tries to explain to Dragon what he's doing, I mean, Dragon's taking a different path. If anything, I wouldn't be surprised if Garp is actually proud of Dragon here. And now that we have this whole, prison break situation going on, could we see Dragon breaking Garp out of prison at Hachinosu? Funny, we talked about Sengoku breaking Garp out of Hachinosu, but now let's spin it. If you guys had to choose, would you rather have Dragon breaking Garp out of Hachinosu or Sengoku and Sudu breaking Garp out of Hachinosu? I think both are really great picks. I just think this would be like a really nice parallel though. Like, oh, here you go, Dad. I'm repaying you for all those years ago. I don't know, man. So I will say this. I was actually surprised that Dragon ended up quitting the Marines in this chapter. Like I said, not a shocking development considering what happened, but I was kind of under the assumption that he would stay a little bit longer so that he would meet Akainu, because there seems to be some sort of grudge there, and I was like, oh, maybe that spawns from their time in the Navy. Turns out that's not the case, because Dragon is leaving right now, and Akainu hasn't even joined the Marines yet. So it must have happened at a later date, while Dragon was a freedom fighter. Because before Dragon becomes a notorious revolutionary, he was simply a freedom fighter. So maybe the freedom fighters and Marines worked hand in hand in some instances, or maybe, you know, they were on the same island and they had like the same goal. Not too sure. But yeah, like I said, I would love it if we got some more Dragon lore as the King Harald flashback goes on. So now, speaking of King Harald, final part of the chapter, King Harald goes over to Marine HQ. He says his goodbyes to Loki and Hiradin before he sets off, and we get the whole scene again, but from a different angle, where he says, hey, you're both my precious sons. I hope you get along when I'm gone. And it's like, dude, it's so wholesome, especially from this angle, because when we first got this panel, it looked kind of scary, where King Harald was all silhouetted. He was like this blackened figure, you know, the horns and the spaulders going crazy. And then here we have it. It's more of a loving father saying goodbye to his kids, which, I mean, was the assumption, but, you know, like I said, the silhouette made it look ominous. So King Harald arrives at Marine HQ. The Marines are like, hey, Harald, whoa, 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 we didn't get permission for you to land yet, which, you know, makes it seem like he's been here a couple of times before in the past, but he does just step off the ship anyways. And he says, high-ranking Marines and leaders of the WG, please hear me out. Allow me to atone for the sins of the past 1,000 years. I apologize for every wrong the giant race has committed. The children of Elbaph are being raised to live without harming others, so that one day they may walk hand in hand with humanity. I do all this to prove our unwavering commitment to peace. I'll do whatever it takes to atone for our sins, even if it means becoming a slave. And that right there, man, it sparked a light in Emu's eyes. Oh my God. It reminds me of Shark Tank. You know, you're at Shark Tank, you just drop your banger invention, and boom, all the sharks are just waking up. They're pressing the button. They're like, let's make a deal, man. Emu has risen. Yeah. I don't know if the paneling is leading us to believe that Emu is hearing what's happening here. Like maybe Emu has like a snail nearby that's just picking up every single word that Harald is spitting. Or if this is just a thing where it's like, oh, this is where Emu steps into the fray. Either one is cool by me. I mean, we've seen that Emu has like almost this omnipotent presence sometimes. So if you're telling me that Emu hears the word slave and their ears perk up, wouldn't be shocked. And yep, this is where King Harald's slave arc begins. The farming arc is starting, and what really sucks is that even after all this, Elbaph doesn't become an affiliated nation even current day. We're coming into this portion of the flashback knowing already that no matter what King Harald does, it's all futile. It's all absolutely worthless. And we don't know if that's because the world government just keeps on stringing him along, which I could definitely see. You know, maybe they're like, oh, King Harald, we'll let you join if you do this and that. And then they just keep on adding more and more things to that list. Or if at some point Harald doesn't want to join anymore, I wouldn't be shocked if that happens. Like maybe King Harald, like for the first 10 years, is like, oh yeah, like I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll do this, I'll do that. And then after a while, he's like, wait a minute. These guys are kind of bad, you know? There's no peace here, man. What the hell is this? Yeah, this is going to be a rough portion of the flashback, and I'm super excited because we can genuinely get a lot more from the God Knights, from Shanks. I do not think Oda is going to drop the ball anytime soon. I think he knows that coming off of God Valley, everybody's going to be riding a high. I think he's going to stay up there. I think he's going to hit us with more banger reveals, and I'm all for it. That's just me. Let me know what you guys thought about this chapter down below. I would love to hear all those thoughts and opinions. And of course, in the next couple of days, we will come back down here and read through the comment section. So if you have any great ideas, make sure to drop it down below. But yeah, until then, you guys stay safe. Take care. Thank you for watching this video all the way to the end. It means a lot, brother. And I'll catch you all later. Peace out.